Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Grossman Files. Hey. We got a great one for you today. Yes, we got a great one for you today, folks. Well, we're here in the waning days of 2025, in the waning days of our video series, because let's face it, I mean, what else do we have to talk about anymore, really? We destroyed Maury Terry's Ultimate Evil. We brought you a brand new way of thinking about Son of Sam. We're called the New Thinkers of Son of Sam. We've bypassed the traditionalists. We've realized that Berkey's bi, that he had other victims, at least one that we know of. And of course, that'll be talked about a little bit more today for anybody who's new to the because we're getting a lot of new people lately because of the Ace Frehley videos. I'm noticing a lot of new names, a lot of new viewers. But let's face it, this is petering out very quickly. I'll be the first to admit that we're hardly getting any views anymore. And just generally speaking, the interest in this topic is basically in the absolute toilet. I got one more walk and talk coming, which is going to be a blockbuster, actually, probably one of the best ones I ever produced in the 5 years of the series. But after that, let's face it, what else can we discuss? But every now and then a little gem comes across my desk that I just feel I have to respond to, and that's what we're talking about today. Yes, Berkey has written the G-Man 2 blogs, one of which says that he loves me, and one of which says that he has to thank me. Of course, he doesn't name me by name, but you'll see it's pretty obvious who he's talking to in these. So I figured I would read them for you today and react to them today. And we'll expand upon it a little bit. Derek Larson, my man. Yo, Derek, I saw your mannequin video on Facebook the other day. That was pretty dope. Great to see you as always in the audience. I'll try to make you happy with something today. So so listen, I've been saying it a million times ever since. It's been actually for years now, but particularly ever since Wendy Savino. For those who don't know, we're the only Son of Sam research group to ever add a canonical victim to his official list of victims in the form of Wendy Savino, who was shot on April 9th, 1976 by David Berkowitz. It's official. It's in the books. NYPD and Bronx DA, to the consternation of all my haters, they have officially added David Berkowitz, Wendy Savino, to the list of Berkowitz's victims. So ever since Wendy was discovered, well, that was it. Berkowitz is veritably obsessed with the G-Man. I'm the first thing he thinks about when he wakes up in the morning, and I'm the last thing he thinks about when he goes to bed at night. I know this for a fact. What's going on? Chemo, ever since I started being on Jason's show, the crowdsource the truth days, and actually I'd speak a little bit about why Jason stopped talking to me in one of my recent live streams where I talk about the early days and the people who were part of the video series. And of course, Jason Goodman was a huge part of my initial success in this. I owe him a lot. I feel bad that the dude stopped talking to me, and he calls me a social engineer now. What does he mean by that? I'm just as perplexed as Jason when he calls me a social engineer as I am when Josh Zeman says, yeah, man, Maury was wrong about some things, but right about others. Like Berkey had help, man. And it wasn't like a whole cult, but it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What do you mean by that, Josh? What is sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Is that the name of people that helped him? Because as far as I can tell, having done the actual research, Berkowitz didn't have help. I don't understand sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What does that mean? And also, I'm not a kiss and tell kind of guy, but I think Josh just says that for public consumption, but I'm not sure he actually really believes that. But in either case, we're not here to talk about Josh Zeman, and we're not here to talk about Jason Goodman. What's going on, John Catalano? We're here to discuss two new blogs that Berkowitz put on his horizonshine.org. And let's just get to them, because what else? That's what we're here to do today. But I've been saying for a while that the dude is obsessed. He's not. He's a fake Christian, because if he was truly Christian, he wouldn't be writing these things where he's constantly trying to convince himself that he's not bothered by me, that I'm not sticking in his craw, that he doesn't have anger towards me. If you have to write that you don't have anger towards somebody, you have anger towards somebody. It's just like a classic thing. And if he's truly a Christian, which I do not believe for one second, well, you wouldn't be writing the things that he's writing. But let's just get to it, shall we? Well, listen, you all can find these for yourself if you haven't already. Berkowitz has a website called horizonshine.org, the official website of the David Berkowitz, former Son of Sam. Yeah, my ass. Listen, check it. Son of Sam is going on to this day. These blogs that I'm writing about are part of his Son of Sam spree. I know it sounds weird for me to say. I did a whole video on that. It was like one of my final videos of the before I went to Puerto Rico, how I talked about his current manipulation of these Christians and the way he likes to fool with people to get money for his commissary Bibles, the same way he fooled and toyed with Maury Terry. That's not Christian. That's actually anti-Christian. And it's actually part and parcel with the way he manipulated the people during his Son of Sam spree, which is why the Son of Sam started the day he was born, and it's only going to end the day that this sick, mass murdering, non-Christian, I'm not going to say a fool because he's actually very smart, but the day that this non-Christian, well, drops dead. Okay? What's going on, Nikos Moss? Art Ben, good to see you in the chat. Hi from a longtime silent observer. Well done for all your work. I truly appreciate it. And John, I don't know if we got to you, but what's going on, my brother? All right. So you could go to horizonshine.org. At the bottom of the homepage, you can see quick links. And we're going to look at Prison Journal, November 2025. And I'm just going to read them first. Just two short blogs, and then I'm going to deal with reacting to them. So the first one is Loving My Enemies. Well, first of all, if you have to say you love your enemies, you hate your enemies. I'm sorry. You trying to bullshit, Berkey? When you say you when you have to write and convince everyone that you love someone, you hate them. It's just psychology 101. What's going on, Brendan? I'm glad you're back, man. Yeah, look, I've said that I retired a few times now over the years, and each time I actually mean it. But this time I'm not. I'm just going to silently fade away, I guess, because quite frankly, unless stuff like this comes up, it's like, what's there to really talk about, right? And everybody says, man, he's an egomaniac. He's concerned about views only. Yeah, I guess those are true to a certain extent. But I'm also the first to admit that, nobody gives a crap about this stuff. There's like 20 people watching right now. I'll maybe get 600 views on this video. It's infinitesimal. I mean, I'm still kicking that crap out of other people who are doing this subject, but that's just because, all the work we put in. But in either case, Loving My Enemies. All right. Well, of course, this starts with, you have heard the law that says love your neighbors, but hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:43-44 NLT. There he goes with the Bible passages again. That's how all these Christians con you. Oh, Bible says, love thine enemies, John 42:78, 1 NLT. Meanwhile, I'm going to shiv you when you're back. These freaking Bible passages. Are you kidding me? anytime you see a Christian pulling out a Bible passage, I mean, I'm not going to say all of them are fake, but anytime you see like a guy like Berkowitz pulling out a Bible passage, and I just wonder like why he wrote these now, like who's getting to him? Like I know that I'm getting to him, but obviously he's being told that I'm doing stuff by all the people emailing him. Maybe Frankly Degenerate is emailing him, keeping him abreast of things. Maybe the lunatic, crazy Chris Claw, the EDP from Olathe, Kansas, is writing him and instigating him because she's a drama queen and loves to do that kind of stuff. Sick person who actually said she would house David Berkowitz if he ever got out of jail. Is she instigating this? Like, where's this coming from? Yo, I what's going on, my man Maria del Carmen Muñiz from the beautiful sunny island of Puerto Rico. Roro, I have no idea. I think he goes up for parole every 2 years. By the way, if anybody wants to call in, let me put the invite link in here. Anybody wants to call in, feel free. All right, so let's get back to loving my enemies. So we got through the Bible passage. All right, so he wrote a Bible passage. I'm sure there are people in this world who don't have enemies. Lucky for them. While there are others who maybe have only one or two, I think they're very fortunate. But with me, it's not the case. I've got many enemies who hate me with a passion. Day or night, they wish me ill will and hope that I die. But that's okay. I understand. Frankly, their hatred is justified. I took innocent lives. I caused grief to many families, bringing them horrific levels of pain, sorrow, and heartache. How I regret this. But my crimes cannot be undone. No amount of tears can wash away my bloody past. I have to live with the consequences, and that's reality. Yet in the process of time, when I was about 10 years into my prison sentence, I had a life-changing encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ. I repented of my sins and invited Messiah Jesus to come into my heart. It was then when I began to understand the enormity of what my criminal acts had done. Nevertheless, while I know God has forgiven me because his words in the Holy Bible make it plain, society has not been as forgiving. Neither have the families who lost a loved one nor those who were injured. Even under other individuals who having no relationship with any of the victims or their families have to this very day continue to spew forth hatred towards me. Some out of meanness are even trying to accuse me of other crimes which I never committed, if only to make trouble for me. But thanks to Christ, I want to take the higher road. I want to forgive my persecutors, and by the grace of God I have. They wish me harm, yet I forgive them. I truly do, and I will continue to pray for them. May they make their peace with God like I did. So be it. Amen. So before I start commenting on this, let me just see what's going on in the chat. I wish you could have interviewed him instead of Michael, the wine merchant franchise, who did a horrible job. I agree. But I've talked about this, Roro. Berkowitz never talks to anybody who actually knows the case. Berkowitz never talks to anybody who isn't sympathetic towards him. And for the most part, Berkowitz only talks to morons. I'm not going to say Franchise is, because clearly he's a very intelligent guy. I'm not going to say that Mike Caparelli is, because clearly he's an intelligent guy. But Berkowitz loves fooling people like the idiot Chris Claw, who he still says, I didn't write the Son of Sam letters. Frankly Degenerate, in other words, Frank DeGennaro, who he says, yeah, I just told Mike Caparelli a lie. I really worked with others, but I just had to say a lie to Mike Caparelli. And of course, off his rocker Mike, the sick pedophile looking dude, spiritually sick, who looks like Alex Varone, the spiritually sick snap suturer lover. Real piece of dung, absolute garbage. So, yeah, so he won't talk to me, man. He's so mean he managed to hurt Berkowitz's feelings. 10 years in, he found God, not buying it. Well, actually, that's one thing I do want to comment on. He says here, in the process of time, I was about 10 years into my prison sentence. I had a life-changing encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ. That is absolute bullshit. First of all, he was a Bible-thumping Christian in the army. That was his first conversion. Secondly, he was a Bible-thumping Christian right after his arrest. That was his second conversion. It was the third conversion to Christianity, allegedly, that he's talking about here. Yet he makes it seem like this is his first. He's lying to you even in this freaking Bible passage-laden blog. Second of all, talk about passive-aggressive, right? I'm sure there are people who don't have enemies. Now, remember, this whole thing is directed towards me, right? He's talking about me here, even under other individuals who have no relation with God, for having no relation with any victims, continue to spew forth hatred. This whole thing's about me, all right? And I'm not being boastful about that. It's just the truth. I know that Berkowitz, I know for a fact that the dude is obsessed with the G-Man. This is the first thing he thinks about in the morning and the last thing he thinks about when he goes to bed. I see some comments in here. I'm going to get to them. But this whole thing is so passive-aggressive, right? Yeah, lucky for them. Yeah, I'm just going to pretend to ride above all this. Oh, they're, I love my enemies. And, yeah, the hatred is justified. I took innocent lives, but, I'm a Jesus Bible thumping Christian now, so that X's out everything. This is sociopathic stuff that we're reading. Actually, this is I wish actually New Cokes was watching and could call in. New Cokes, if you're watching, call in. I would actually love to get your opinion on this. Right, Nikosmas, we are not persecutors. Berkey would have to be innocent. Exactly. So let's see what people are saying here. Maria says a whole letter and not an apology. Not that it matters, but he keeps being so narcissistic. Right. It all comes back to him and his persecution and people saying mean things about him as if, first of all, as if we're not allowed to. And second of all, as if there's anything other to say about a guy who shot innocent people in the head repeatedly. And then in the case of Wendy Savino, lies about it to this day. And we'll get to that for the newbies who might not know the Wendy Savino story. Because he's talking here about Wendy Savino, right? Some out of meanness are even trying to accuse me of other crimes which I never committed. So I'm just being mean. Whoops. So now I'm just being mean to Berkowitz when I found a new victim of his who swears, and there's a lot of evidence to back her up, that Berkowitz shot her before the Son of Sam spree proper started. But we're just being mean by pointing that out. Are you kidding? So Mr. Moff says the Caparelli thing was an obvious attempt to make Burke look truly repentant for parole. Holy roller, Husau. Listen, I don't want to talk bad about Caparelli. I can't say he's my biggest fan, but him and I have a tenuous respect for each other, and I respect what he did because at least he got Berkowitz to say that he acted alone. Now, we didn't need Caparelli's book for that. We had already figured all that out by looking at the only thing that matters, the forensic evidence and the on the record detectives' reports and the witness statements, his own confession compared to the actual crimes and what the witnesses said. We didn't need Caparelli, but having him say that in the book was very important. So I give Caparelli, I'll always give Caparelli a pass for that. Art Ben, good. Art Ben, you're communicating, longtime lurker, and we like what you're having to say. I strongly suspect that Berkowitz Christianity is as real as anything is for the Son of Sam. At the end of the day, he's a seriously mentally ill person, perhaps worth the show by itself. Well, kind of every show, Art, is like about how this guy is mentally ill. How much could we talk about that? And it just oozes out from stuff like this. So here he is loving me, even though this whole thing is about how mean I am and how I'm persecuting him. And he wants to take the higher road. This is like the classic, oh yeah, you're not bothering me when you're clearly bothered. And I'm not doing this to bother Berkowitz. I'm not doing this to not bother Berkowitz. Berkowitz's feelings never enter into my mind once. he hasn't reached the level of being deserving of that from a law-abiding, normal citizen of the planet Earth. He doesn't get that respect for what he did. So like I don't care about your feelings, but I'm not trying to be mean to the guy by accusing him of something he didn't do. Berkowitz, you did it. You know you did it. And by that we're talking about Wendy Savino. So here he is loving me even though he hates me. And I can't really say exactly how I know his true feelings about me, but let's just say that I've seen other things of his where he tells his true feelings about me. And it's anything but love. I'll say that. And that's another reason why I know for a fact, I'm not just conjecturing here. I know for a fact that this is all a big, huge stinking pile of bullshit, especially because it's starting with a Bible passage. So loving my enemies. All right. So now he goes one further. Thanking my enemies. So not only does he love his enemies, now he has to thank his enemies. And of course, he's talking about me here. And it becomes even more apparent that he's talking, if it wasn't already apparent to you from the last letter, the last blog, it's going to become very apparent to you in this one. So Art Ben says, you are right about his conversion. Note that the person who supposedly converted him has only ever had a first name and never been identified. True. Exactly. He had good intentions, I'm sure. All right. So thanking his enemies. So here he is, starting again with a Bible passage. Let me shit on you. Let me kill. Let me maim. Let me rape, rob, lie, steal. But as long as I do it saying a Bible passage, everything is going to be just hunky-dory. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. Matthew 5:11, 22, 12 NLT. Does the Bible actually say that? That sounds actually very modern. People mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things about you. Anyway, maybe some of our Christian friends in the audience can look up Matthew 5:11 NLT and see whether that's true. So let's just get to these two. Me, all about him. Definitely a narcissist. He's above it all. Exactly, Roro. You got that down pat. Maria says, I know it's about you with that title. That's what he thinks you're his enemy. Right. And isn't it not Christian? Hold on. Isn't Christianity supposedly about, like, I don't know. I'm not a Christian. I'm not anything. God forgive me. I don't believe in that stuff. But like, aren't you not supposed to have these feelings if you're truly religious? Or is that just like something that I'm making up? Like, you're not supposed to hate. Or maybe like you can hate, but as long as you forgive yourself at the end of the day. What's going on, Ruby? Yeah, I asked Chat GPT if David was still alive. I've assumed he was for you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's still alive. He's writing these stupid things directed towards me. Like I said, his whole life is now dedicated to. I'm the new Lawrence Klausner, which is kind of ironic if you think about it, because in the Netflix video, I was sandwiched between Jack Jones and Lawrence Klausner as the top Son of Sam researchers in the world. I wouldn't exactly put Klausner into that category. No offense, Lawrence, if you're watching, but your book, although not as bad as Maury Terry, because at least you got it was directionally accurate. Lawrence Klausner's book was filled with a lot of whoosao. So Pokey says, yes, because you are my followers, not because you are a deranged killer. You aren't talking about him or mocking him because he's a Christian. One of the best ways to piss off a narcissist is to call him out on their mind games. You call them out. Right, which is exactly why he'll never talk to me. Never. In my previous journal entry, I wrote on how the Lord is teaching me to love my enemies. First of all, you've been a Christian since 1987, allegedly. You haven't learned yet? It's 2026 almost. It's taken you this long? I'm not your first enemy. All right, I'm just going to read it without commenting. How I should be merciful to them and pray for them, just as the Lord himself did with me when I was a lost soul and was living in open rebellion towards him. In years past, I hated God. I was convinced he hated me as well. And in my stupidity, I was even involved in Satan worship, where I unwittingly opened up myself to demonic control. Yet had it not been for God's mercy, I would later realize that I would probably be in hell right now. So as I pondered these things, it dawned on me that I should not only be praying for my enemies, but thanking them as well. Why? Because by putting up with their hatred, harassment, and absurd accusations, my heavenly Father has assured me that I will be rewarded for every unkind word that has ever been spoken or written about me. Yes, I believe this to be true. In the scriptures, God's word declares how there will be rewards awaiting those who get bad-mouthed and lied about because of their faithful stand for Jesus Christ and the gospel. Wow, all these haters and troublemakers who blast away at me with cruel comments and condemnation are really helping to bless me with rewards of jewels and crowns and accolades from the Lord himself that will be mine for all eternity. Therefore, what can I say to those who hate and despise me and openly slander me? To them, I say thank you. This is insanely narcissistic. I hope that you guys are I hope that you guys are actually catching this. How, again, it's all about him and the persecution of him, as if he didn't do anything that deserves to be persecuted against. How it's all about how we're heaping hatred, harassment, and absurd accusations. So we're not allowed to talk about his crimes. That automatically means that we're harassing him. And all these haters and troublemakers. And again, here's the classic. You don't bother me. I'm happy you're saying these things to me because that means that I'm better or whatever the hell. I mean, it's ridiculous. When you have to write something like this means that you're bothered to your core. And if he's truly bothered to his core by this, which I actually believe 100%, he's not Christian. Because a Christian wouldn't write something like this, so narcissistic, so fobbing off responsibility for things on some nebulous thing like, oh yeah, I was once this, but then God forgave me. It doesn't work like that, man. Not in the real world. So narcissism, unbelievable amounts of it. All I can say to the people who are putting David Berkowitz up to this, because he's being instigated into this, because he wouldn't know about me if other people didn't tell him, right? And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say Frank DeGennaro, off his rocker Mike, and the absolute lunatic from Kansas, Chris Claw, the main groupie and head of Berkowitz's fan club. What game are you guys playing? It has very little effect on me other than I use it for comedy and I get blogs out of it and I get shows out of it. But then I go on with my day. I'm not like, obsessed with this like Berkowitz is in a sense that like this bothers me. This doesn't bother me. I find this entertaining. But what I'm saying to you is like, what are you doing to this guy? Those of you who are putting him up to this crap, because this does not come out of his head alone. This is being fed to him by people. So that means that there's people with vested interest in keeping his hatred alive. And that's not Christian either. These people are actually all devilish. But there's a few things that I want to talk about in here. So he says here, now he goes back to this whole, I was involved in Satan worship. That's bullshit. He wasn't worshiping Satan during Son of Sam. He had very little to no knowledge of occultism. He read a few books. He wasn't worshiping Satan. He was mentally ill, bothered by the lack of control and direction that he had in life, and he took it out on innocent people. He wasn't worshiping Satan. So there he is going back to his I was a devil worshiper bit. So again, he's like wavering now to Caparelli. He said he did it all alone. To Gilroy, he said he didn't have any knowledge of occultism and he didn't worship the devil. And now he's saying that he's back to the Maury Terry bullshit of I worship Satan and I open myself to demonic control. SNK says, I feel like he's playing the victim. Yes, totally. It gets back to that whole thing that he writes, the psychology of always wanting to get into trouble as a kid so he could get the attention. And in a sense, I'm giving him the attention that he so desires. I recognize that. But what can I say? This is my niche topic on YouTube. I'm the only person talking about these things seriously on YouTube. I'm not going to be doing it for much longer. So we're just getting it all out now. But yeah, good observation, SNK. Maria says he thought his dirt was safeguarded under a rug. He didn't count on the fact that the rug had a wide hole. True, exactly. Pokey says, again, he's not being hated and despised because he's a Christian. He's hated and despised because he's a serial killer. He's twisting the Bible to suit his needs. Agree 100%. Ruby, Matt, hypocrisy. Roro, he's the victim. Berkey, he never would have imagined these psychiatric notes seeing the light of day. True. He never imagined either that we would find Wendy, which we're going to talk about in a second. Art Ben, who I like his stuff, and he's new, so let's show him some love. Yes, you're 1,000% right about Son of Sam being a narcissist. This is what I meant about the show devoted to his psychological condition, extreme paranoid, schizophrenia, and narcissism. Well, I actually have 12 shows on that. It's called Psychiatric Sunday, Art Ben. Maybe you don't know that those videos exist. I did them a couple years ago with the clown Eric Galati, who back then was doing good work. Now he's hanging out with people who hate him and make fun of him behind his back. And in the clown show, in the clown car, but whatever. I mean, that was his fate. He didn't have to go that way. But we did good work together on Psychiatric Sunday, so you may want to check those out. He wasn't worshiping at all. He worships himself. Yes, agree 100,000%. So, of course, in the first one, he talked about being blamed for things he didn't do. And in this latest one, he's talking about, people are making absolute crazy accusations against me that have no basis in reality, and they're slandering my name, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, what he's talking about, and this is for the newbies, and of course, those of you who have been with me the whole time know this story in and out, but I just want to add this, even though I've talked about this a million times. Feel free to tune out if you guys don't want to watch this, but I just want this on the record in this show, because what he's talking about, of course, is the Wendy Savino case. So just looking at the comments here. Deep inside, he's so upset by your good work. Yep. Yes, I heard Shinati passed away, John. I put a post up about it. So he's talking about, of course, Wendy Savino, who's this woman on the left, and she's being interviewed here by now retired first grade detective Mike Lorenzo of the Yonkers Police Department, who didn't get the credit he deserved, especially in the Netflix documentary, because Wendy played a big part in the last episode of that documentary. Joe Berlinger, by the way, the Academy Award nominated director and true crime expert, has gone on record that says that he believes Wendy. So people say, nobody believes Wendy. Yeah, okay. Nobody believes Wendy. Only the New York Police Department does. Only first grade detective Mike Lorenzo does. Only the Bronx district attorney believes her. I believe her. And so does, of course, Joe Berlinger, the Academy Award nominated director of the latest Son of Sam film. He's on record straight up saying that he believes Wendy. So so Berkowitz was trying once again to deny that he shot Wendy. So let's just go through, for those who might be new, some of the salient issues regarded with Wendy. And of course, for those of you who are new, in May of 2024 and early June of 2024, we found a new victim of his. We found Wendy Savino by studying the case files and realizing that in 1976, a New York Police Department detective connected her case to the first official shooting of Donna Lauria, and added her file to the Lauria file, which is, of course, where we found it. Long story short, we got in touch with Wendy. Wendy told us her story, that ever since she saw him on the day of the arrest, she recognized him as her shooter, and that she's been telling people for 50 years, anybody who would listen. She even told the Bronx district attorney, who summarily ignored her, that Berkowitz was her shooter. And it never gained traction, because people like the idiots who still talk smack against Wendy, they just didn't believe that it could be true. So Official Brutal Impact says, have I ever visited him in person? No, he'll never talk to me. He hates my guts, first of all. But second of all, he never talks to people who have his number, who know what he's really truly all about. So he only speaks to, with the few exceptions, I'm going to say, Caparelli being one of them, he only speaks to absolute total freaking idiots who buy his Christian bullshit. So this is what we're talking about, of course. And this is the first official Son of Sam article that came out. No one knew it at the time. But motive elusive in shooting. Bronx police have thus far been able to come up with a motive in the shooting Friday of Mrs. Wendy Savino of Pelham Manor. We're open to any possibility, a detective said Monday afternoon, concerning that the investigation had turned little up in the way of hard evidence in the case. The 39-year-old Mrs. Savino of 1437 Roosevelt Avenue was shot about 11:15 Friday night as she sat in her car in the parking lot of a North Bronx restaurant. A lone gunman approached the car, peered inside, and smiled before pulling the trigger, the victim told police. So, of course, when I read about this, police believe that the fact the gunman smiled at his victim before shooting rules out the possibility of mistaken identity. This is when they were still thinking that she was a mob hit. But what people didn't know was that David Berkowitz, the future Son of Sam, shot her. There was no precedent for this. Women were not getting shot, lone women in cars through windshields in that area of the Bronx before David Berkowitz came around. It was just unheard of, and it's actually been unheard of since. If you look in the historical record, as Detective Klein said in the Netflix video documentary, her case was wholly the modus operandi of David Berkowitz. So I wanted again to talk about this smiling, because morons like Rena, who hangs out with the psychopath Neo, talks about how he never smiled while shooting anybody. Well, first of all, 6 of his victims died. So how do you know that? And then the rest basically didn't see him, except for Lomino Damasi, who saw him. And then the rest didn't see him. So how do you know he didn't smile? Lomino Damasi didn't say that he smiled, but he did something in that case that was very similar to Wendy. He interacted with her before he shot her, which is what he did with Lomino Damasi. So when I read about the smile, that was it. That was my last piece of the evidence that I needed, that this was Berkowitz. And that's why I got in touch with Wendy, because again, this happened in the same exact zone as the first Son of Sam shooting. It happened less than 1.5 miles away from the Donna Lauria shooting. It happened 0.5 mile away from where he had been living on Barnes Avenue. It happened about half a mile to a mile away from Co-op City, where he grew up. This was his kill zone. This was where he was comfortable. It happened immediately in the aftermath of him having a psychotic trigger in the form of leaving the Cassara house. We know that when he was triggered like that, he went out and shot, as is evidenced in several other of his shootings, both of people and of dogs. It was his MO. Of course, one of the things that the smile, for the idiots out there who think that he never smiled, yeah, dumbest theory yet, the mafia shot Wendy. Absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, if anybody wants to call in, feel free. I would love to have somebody on here to talk to. Wendy Savino was your greatest moment. I'm sure you must have pointed out that Berkowitz even admitted to shooting an older person. He said did not die. Yes, that was part of the case file that he admitted to shooting an older woman. He said an old woman who crawled away. Wendy Savino crawled away from her shooting. So he won't confess to shooting Wendy, even though he's never getting out of prison. Yes, the reason why is because this was his little secret that he never thought was going to get out. And also, I'm the one, along with Lorenzo, but mainly because I'm the one that found it, he'll never cop to it. He hates my guts, as you can see, even though he said he loves me and thanks me in these stupid blogs that he wrote. He actually hates my guts. That's his true feelings. I know how he feels about me because I've seen certain things from behind the scenes. I'm not going to get specific, but I've seen certain things where what he says is 180 degrees different from what he writes on his public blog. And let's just leave that. And those who know that I'm telling the truth on that. So, right, that would ruin his choir boy act. Exactly. And it also would open up to the questions even from his supporters. Well, is there anybody else besides Wendy? And of course, me and Mike Lorenzo are almost 100% convinced that he was the Bronx Sniper of 1970, which we'll deal with, of course, still in our video series we're going to deal with. But brain dead, dumber than rock people like Rena of the Rena and Neo Clown Show says he never smiled. A smile wasn't part of his MO. Yeah, well, in this Newsweek article that came out the week after his arrest, August 22nd, 1977, look at what it leads off with. We're not going to read this whole thing. Sorry. I've just highlighted certain aspects of this article. Look at the lead sentence. At the end, and I'm sorry, I highlighted it. It doesn't really show, but it says, at the end, there was the smile. The man who police called the son of Sam had been growing increasingly careless during his last few days, leaving clues for his pursuers. So it leads off with the smile. And then look down here. You got me. And then he smiled. And then on this page, just another thing, they're talking to a friend of his from the police days, police auxiliary days. But he apparently absorbed the police jargon and procedure that was later used by the son of Sam. Quote, he always had that silly smile, recalls his police superior Thomas Winters in 1971. Thomas Winters. In 1971, David enlisted in the Army. So it's talking about his smile here. Oh, look. Hold on. And the last paragraph of the article. The veterans of this nightmare sensed very quickly last week that Son of Sam would leave them only with the fact of his awful random madness and the smile. So the smile was his biggest characteristic that everybody in New York, everybody in the world media, again, this was Newsweek, the sick world of Son of Sam. And there he is smiling. So the fact that this article, which is now the first historical article on Son of Sam, a lone gunman approached the car, peered inside, and smiled before pulling the trigger. That was my last thing, which made me realize that this was Berkowitz. And then I got in touch with Savino, who then, of course, confirmed it. So, of course, for those of you who don't know this case that I'm talking about, this is the sketch that Wendy Savino supplied to the police department, which is a spitting image. All right, Berkowitz doesn't have such a pronounced widow's peak. I get that, but again, these are not photographs. This is David Berkowitz. Even my enemies who hate my guts in the Son of Sam space would admit this if they didn't have such hatred for me personally. This is David Berkowitz. It even is 5'9". It's supposed to be 180. That was actually her original weight that she gave to the police right as she was lying on the floor. I don't know how it morphed to 160, but this is exactly the same and in line with every other description of every other sketch in Son of Sam. The best sketch of Berkey. Yeah, and of course, look at it compared with the Moskowitz. It's the same face. It's the same hair almost. Same, basically the same everything. Same lips, big protruding lower lip, big protruding lower lip. Wendy said that his nose wasn't quite as wide as it came out on the sketch. It was more hooked. So that is shown here. And of course, this is the sketch compared to the Voskerichian sketch. Now, the moron Chris Claw and the absolute spiritual sick lunatic off his rocker Mike say that Berkowitz, there was 2 sketches of the Savino shooting, and Berkowitz was shown the second sketch. And why was that sketch never shown? No, you idiots. I've tried to tell you this a million times. I'm going to say it a million and first. The sketch that they showed Berkowitz at his interrogation was the Voskerichian sketch. It was this one. And they were showing it to him because even he agreed that the sketches of the Savino sketch was uncanny resemblance to himself. And of course, I found this on another person's Son of Sam thing where they morphed the 2 together, and it's the same face. Look at everything matches, everything lines up. I mean, are you kidding me? Oh, there's no way it was him. All right. Well, then tell me who the identical twin was who was shooting women in parked cars unprecedentedly with the same modus operandi at the same exact time period in the same place where Berkowitz was doing it, and who just happened to do it after Berkowitz had a psychotic event and left the Casara's house. And then, of course, who never did it again. And then Berkowitz took up the mantle of that person just 3 months later and shot Donna Loriak. When you can tell me who that person is, then maybe we can have a debate. But just these lazy arguments, as someone set up here, of just saying, yeah, the mafia, it was the mafia who never shot women. Wives of, and also you'd first have to prove that Joe Savino, her husband, was a mafioso of such high import that it required shooting not him, which the mafia shot men, but Joe Savino was a mafioso of such high importance and committed such a cardinal sin against the mafia that they needed to shoot his wife. Right. Just show me who, tell me, first prove to me then that Joe Savino was that mobster. So, of course, this is what Berkowitz is talking about. I didn't do it. He's still with the who's-out of I didn't do it. Well, this is the case closing report, and this will be our last slide for the day. On May 19th, 2024, members of Bronx Homicide conducted an interview of David Berkowitz at Shawangunk Correctional Facility. Berkowitz denied being involved in the shooting. Berkowitz stated that he could not have been involved in that shooting because he only used a .44 caliber in his crimes. I reminded Berkowitz that I never mentioned the caliber used in the Savino case and that I knew he purchased a .44 in June of 1976. He responded, well, that .44 was the only gun I used. It was later determined that Berkowitz was aware of the Manny Grossman YouTube show prior to the interview and the discussions relating to caliber. While Berkowitz never cited this, a review of his inmate email account demonstrates that he and Frank DeGennaro, now Frank DeGennaro is the guy who accosted Wendy in the library not too long ago, scaring her, putting her in the hospital with pneumonia because of the stress of that event. He and Frank DeGennaro discussed this aspect of the case in the weeks prior to the interview. Additionally, Berkowitz stated that the sketch done by Savino was uncanny when compared to him in the Voskerichian sketch, and that the MO was the same, and admitted that barking dogs were a trigger for him. He described leaving the New Rochelle address the day before Savino was shot due to his negative emotional response to his landlady's barking dogs. He could not say specifically where he was living during the gap between New Rochelle and the Yonkers address, but speculates that he was living in his car. Additionally, when asked if he was on a jury and presented with the facts of the case as I was presenting them, he conceded that he would find himself guilty, but continued to deny that he was involved. In light of these facts, it is the opinion of the investigators of the Bronx Homicide Squad that probable cause has been established that David Berkowitz is responsible for the shooting of Wendy Savino. A conferral was made with ADA Christine Scaccio of the Bronx District Attorney's Office, and she is in agreement that if the facts of this case were associated to a present-day case, an arrest would be made. Based on statute of limitations for felony assault, this case is closed on exceptional clearance. So there you have it. You have Berkowitz talking about, I didn't do it. He's still saying it, and he's using it now in a passive-aggressive and narcissistic way to write very angrily about me personally, Manny Grossman, about how I'm persecuting him, and I'm spewing hatred, and I'm mean to him. No. I'm talking about another shooting that you did. You know you did it. And Chris Claw and Office Rocker Mike and Frank Degenerate, a.k.a. Frank DeGennaro, the victim accoster. You tell him what I'm saying on this, because I know that that's what your whole life is about. Reporting to your boyfriend, the killer, David Berkowitz. Let's see who's by the way, I would have enjoyed to StreamYard, but I'm a bit hoarse with a big, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Maria. He smiles like an imbecile to appear harmless. Right. And he wrote about that in his letters to Abrahamson. He wrote specifically about how he used his smile as a weapon during the commission of his crimes. I mean, what more do you want? Tell me who his identical twin was who was doing this. Not you, Nikozmas, but I'm speaking to the people who still think that Berkowitz didn't shoot Wendy. It's ridiculous. And now these people use that against me. They say, oh, he's defensive. He doesn't really believe that Berkowitz shot Wendy. Otherwise, he wouldn't talk about it so much. First of all, I don't talk about it so much. Second of all, I'm allowed to talk about it. This is what I'm known for in the true crime history of this case. Albeit to a very limited audience. I recognize that, although we did get it out to millions of people in Netflix. I'm going to talk about this. This is something that I'm just going to talk about. It has no bearing on my confidence in I'm very confident that David Berkowitz shot Wendy Savino. I agree, John. Can't argue with the morons. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't even try to argue anymore. I guess you could say that this is arguing, but I'm just presenting the facts again as they are in the real world as presently constituted. And I always say, if you don't believe it, that's fine. The only people who matter believe it. The New York Police Department, the Bronx DA, myself, Mike Lorenzo, Joe Berlinger. We got tons of emails from people afterwards in law enforcement saying congratulations. And the most important one who believes it, of course, is Wendy Savino herself. So I'm going to put the link up in the thing again. If anybody wants to call in just to discuss anything that may be on your mind vis-a-vis Son of Sam or today's topic. Hold on one second. My theory. So John says, my theory, he won't admit it because it would damage the image he's trying to repair. Yeah, of course. Definitely. It's multi-leveled. And some of it, of course, has to do with the fact that it's me personally, because you see how he hates my guts. I don't care. I'm just stating a fact. You see that how obsessed he is with me, that he's writing these blogs. He'll never admit it because I'm the person who found him, along, of course, with Mike Lorenzo, who never got the credit he deserved for this. Right. Just admit it if you're a true Christian. Pokey says, you and Wendy are getting under his skin, making him very uncomfortable, which is a good thing. Yeah. I mean, listen, he's still talking about this a year and a half later. Like I said, it's the first thing he thinks about when he wakes up. It's the last thing he thinks about before he goes to bed. He's obsessed with the fact that we found him. And he's probably hearing stories about the Bronx Sniper from the sicko Chris Claw and the sicko Spiritually Sick off his rocker Mike. He's and frankly degenerate, the victim accoster. In fact, I would be willing to bet money that they're telling him, oh man, he's on this other case now, the Bronx Sniper. And I bet you he's shitting in his pants on that, because I believe he was the Bronx Sniper, and there was a homicide in that case. Statute of limitations is not over. He could go down again and get another life sentence for Margaret Iglesias, who, while she was laying down on the ground after having been shot by one of the sniper's bullets, she wasn't dead yet. So the sniper carefully aimed with patience and pumped another bullet into her and killed her. A level of cruelty which is very Berkowitzian, I would have to say. I truly believe that Berkowitz was the Bronx Sniper. It doesn't matter to me what you guys think. Everything lines up for him being the Bronx Sniper. And we're not going to stop on this case until we get some answers on the Bronx Sniper. So I think this is also preemptive on his part, because he knows how effective we are. And we already found one of his victims, but he got off because the statute of limitations had run out. Statute of limitations hasn't run out on Margaret Iglesias. David Berkowitz, who was 17 years old when that sniper case was happening, just a mere 2 blocks away from your synagogue where you were there every day getting bar mitzvahed when you were 10 to 13 years old, a mere 10 blocks from your father's hardware store where you were working that summer. Of course, they found rifles in your arsenal. It's not the same rifle, I'll admit, but they found a rifle, the same type of rifle that we believe shot the Bronx Sniper victims, a 22 rifle that was able to be disassembled. And they also found rifle targets. We talked about that on our voucher show the other day. They found 100-yard rifle targets. And Mike Lorenzo was very interested in that one. I took that video down because it was kind of rough. It was my first foray into StreamYard. But I put up those documents in my community section, in my posts section, so you can see that they took rifle targets out of his apartment, which was previously unknown before I made it public the other day. What's going on, official? Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that greatly. We just trying to do our thing here, man. We're trying to think outside the box. See, people like the dumb as rocks Rena, and the psychopathic degenerate liar Neo, and people like the crazy Chris Claw from Olathe, Kansas, and the spiritually sick off his rocker Mike, and all of these types who are that way, the anti-Semites who still believe Maury Terry. For some reason, there's a huge streak of Jew hatred amongst Maury Terry's last remaining fans. I'm not saying the people I just mentioned are, but there are other people who still try to be beef with me about Maury Terry being correct. And they're just straight up hate Jews. So there's just this weird element that occurs amongst these people. And they're traditionalist thinkers. They're not capable of thinking outside the box. And it was the our thinking outside the box on Son of Sam that led to Wendy Savino, and it's our thinking outside the box that maybe will lead to an actual indictment in Bronx Sniper. That's what we're hoping. And you can get that back to him, Claw, and off his rocker, because I know he's shitting in his pants. And I think these blogs are actually indicative of that. Yo, my man, Ralph Dude's in the house. I know the way Manny is. He's going to end up getting way into Bronx Sniper. Yo, too late. I'm just not publicizing it, but I'm heavily into Sniper behind the scenes. It's like something I think about every day. Art Ben says, Bronx Sniper, as a former law enforcement officer, my experience is that these people do not just start, but are long-time recidivists who have long histories in this sort of behavior. Yes, that's exactly the mindset that my great friend, Detective Mike Lorenzo, now retired of the Yonkers Police Department, that's exactly what he thinks too. That Berkowitz didn't just come out of the ether starting to shoot Donna Lauria, that he already had a lot of experience doing this. And the Bronx Sniper case would, if you think about it, it would just be a logical continuation of all the shit that he did as a kid. He would throw things off the roof of his building onto people. He talked about that in his letters to Abrahamson. So it's just one step up to then go up to a roof and shoot people. And we know that he's inclined to do that because he's the son of Sam. So excellent, man. Where you been this whole time? We could have used your awesome art. We could have used your awesome comments in a lot of our shows. You're really good. As Maria agrees. Yes, exactly. So, all right, great show. It doesn't seem like anybody's calling in, which is cool. I don't want to go on too much longer. We've been on for an hour. I said what I needed to say. So, yeah, I mean, I'll try to find some interesting things to bring up. Like I said, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of like this was a gift that Berkowitz gave to me today. So I had to, he actually wrote these yesterday, but I had to do a show on them. And I think this was a really good show. And, but yeah, we're reaching the bottom of the barrel in terms of shows. But again, like I said, I have an interview, a walk and talk with a member of Maury Terry's 22 Disciples of Hell coming up. This person reached out to me to specifically to tell their story. And so we're going to get that on the historical record. It's going to be Billy the Artist level of absolute throwing Maury Terry into the trash heap, in addition to actually a quite poignant story vis-a-vis Son of Sam. So I think that's going to be at one of my best. And as Ralph Dude so rightly pointed out, we're on Bronx Sniper like white on rice. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And we will see you on the next episode of The Grossman Files. Take care.